talk about factoring the greatest common factor. This is the first place you're going to always start when you are factoring. So your problems are going to say factor, and then you're going to be given a set of terms with addition or subtraction signs in the middle of them. And you're going to break it apart. Factoring is the inverse or the opposite of distributing, where distributing was taking something on the outside of the parentheses and putting it into it. Factoring is taking it back apart. You should not have any like terms. When I look at this, I have x's and y's, but they don't match because x squared and x don't match, y and y squared don't match. So when you're told to factor it, this lesson, we're going to pull out the greatest common factor. So the first thing that you're going to do is you are going to, oh gosh, I lost my pen. Let me erase that and rewrite it. You're going to break everything apart. Just tree it out. The technical term is break it into its prime factors. Just spread everything apart, including your letters. So 3x squared y, 3 is already prime, so it's just going to become 3xxy. So when you have those x's written like that, spread them apart. Then the second term, I always write my sign here so I don't lose it. 6 breaks down into 2 times 3, and then there's 1x and 2y. So spread it all apart. And then there's it's not really a formula, but you are going to pull out your common factor, so whatever matches, you're going to put out front, and technically it's your greatest common factor. Greatest common factor comes on the outside, and you leave the leftovers inside. Now I know leftovers isn't spelled with a hyphen, but I put that there because there's going to be a sign there. So let's see. Step 1, find your greatest common factor, and that is simply what matches. They both have a 3. They both have an x, and they both have a y. So we are going to pull 3xy out front. And then the leftovers, what do we have left? Well, on the first one, we have an x plus 2y. Those leftovers stay inside. So the common factor comes outside, whatever matches, 3xy. And then the leftovers go inside, except that there should be a 2 right there. All right, so common factor, tree it, find your greatest common factor. That pulls out, your leftovers stay inside. Let's do another one. All right, now this one looks terrifying. And I'll be honest, if you have dyslexia or dyspraxia, your eyes kind of jumble up things, this may be a little bit difficult for you. I'm going to just suggest that you kind of spread it out on some notebook paper because that gets a jumbled mess. You have so many of the same letters and then those little numbers, and it gets jumbled up. So step 1, tree it out. My first term is A3, X2, M2. Second term, A2, X, M3. Then A4, X3, M2. So just spread it out. There's no coefficients. There's no numbers in front, so there's nothing to tree as far as numerically as numbers are concerned. And I've already actually highlighted what they have in common. I copied this straight from that worksheet I gave you, so I've already highlighted it. They have these A's in common. They have this X in common. And they have these Y's in common. That's why they're highlighted, all right? I'm going to erase those circles. It's more confusing. Then the leftovers are not highlighted. So my common term, what do they have in common? They have 2 A's, they have an X, and they have 2 M's. Then my leftovers are a x plus m minus a squared x squared. Common term goes outside, leftovers go inside. And because I started with 3 terms, 1, 2, 3, inside here, I need to have 3 terms. So my common term that I'm pulling out is a squared xm. Then what is left is ax in my first term, plus, the reason it's a plus is because this is a plus, m minus a squared x squared. And that is it. And I know that this does not look any better or any simpler than this, but we are going to use this later. Well, Algebra 2 is going to use this later. Algebra 1, you're going to just practice this in preparation for Algebra 2. All right, let's look at one more. Okay, so my original problem is 3x squared, 9x squared. So we're going to break all of this down. Now here's the thing, 3x is already as small as it can go. That's it. 9 breaks down into 3 times 3, and then my x is split up as xx. Okay. Now what do they have in common? Well, I've already highlighted it. They both have a 3. They both have an x. So that is what pulls out. The 3 and the x pull out. Now this leftover situation here is something you have to pay attention to. Technically, mathematically, what we are doing is we are dividing out. We're not subtracting it, we're dividing it mathematically. However, the process of that is a big honking mess if I write that all out. So I'm just showing you how to just sort of mentally pull it out. But the operation that is technically happening is division. Now, if I sort of take a detour over here for a minute, 2 divided by 2 is 1. 19 divided by 19 is 1. X divided by x is 1. 3x divided by 3x is 1. So you need to make a mental note that when everything goes away, you technically still have a 1 because mathematically we're dividing. Okay, so just remember, if everything goes away, everything is circled, that understood 1 is technically still there. Okay, so your steps, tree it out. Find what matches, pull that out, and leave your leftovers inside. In your worksheet, you have some practice problems to do. What I would like for you to do is pause this, do those, and then come back in a second and check them on the next slide. All right, here are the answers to those practice problems that hopefully you paused and practiced them and got these answers correct. And then your homework is exercise 1 from that first lesson. And that's it for this one.